Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to follow the line of questioning initiated by Mr. Stivers. And Mr. Powers, if you could include applications on behalf of active reservists who were killed. There's a case in El Paso. I represent the family of Angel Garcia, who was an active Marine reservist, a police officer who was killed in the line of duty. And the family made an application for him to be interred and memorialized at Fort Bliss National Cemetery. That was denied. And I can understand the logic from NCA's part, but I also understand the request on behalf of the family. So I don't necessarily want to get into the details of the case right now, but if you could just include that in your review process, and just wanted to raise that specific family's case in this hearing and put it on your radar, because it's an issue that we'd like to follow up with you on going forward.
Congressman, thank you for your question, and it's probably better to talk about most of the aspects of that case between my staff and yours, just so we could discuss it. But I do need to distinguish the case as I know it, because what Congressman Stivers has asked us to do, what we share with him in the goal to do, is to correct with the new rewrite of the regulations an issue that deals with providing a benefit to an eligible individual, whether that person was eligible because of their Civil War service, or that person was eligible because of their World War II service. It doesn't matter.
I'm sorry, let me interrupt you, because I have very limited time,
okay,
and I want to make sure that I get to some other issues that are really important for the community I represent. I think my intention was just to broaden the review of eligibility and the application process, and if that's not possible, I specifically want to bring up the case of Angel Garcia with you and their family. So just wanted to register that with you.
Okay.
A really important issue for the community I represent is Fort Bliss Cemetery. A deeply unpopular decision that the NCA made was to xeriscape that cemetery, remove all of the grass, put in gravel, rock, and dirt, and it is a very unwelcoming place for many families to visit and commemorate the service of their loved ones. And I don't want to go into how or why the decision was made. What I want to work with you on is how we improve that situation there. I want to know what we can do on an interim basis to beautify it, to make it a little bit more hospitable for visitors to the cemetery. I want to find out what we can do as a community to work with you, perhaps to raise funds privately and dedicate those funds to the improvement of the cemetery. We understand from you that it will cost somewhere between $11 to $14 million to regrass that cemetery, one of only 3 in the country that has been xeriscaped. It is a priority of ours in our office. It's a priority for the community, but it's very expensive, and it competes against a number of other priorities for veterans in El Paso. So want to find out what creative, constructive ways we can work together to address that issue. And so I guess one of the things that I'd like to ask you is, when can we get some detailed plans from NCA to initiate some kind of planting effort, so on an interim basis we can beautify that cemetery and make it a little bit better for those who are visiting the remains of their loved ones?
Congressman, I have a new network director who's responsible for the region. Essentially, I guess you could quickly describe it as the Rocky Mountain region, and he is visiting in the next 2 weeks, I believe, around the 15th, I believe, and his deputy has already been down there to look at the foliage issues, and I've told him to look at that and try to make part of the cemetery look like the other part. As you know, when we made the decision to xeriscape or use water-wise landscaping for the cemetery, which came out of information that in a report to Congress where we water-wise landscaping was determined to be the right thing for Fort Bliss National Cemetery. When we did that, part of it was converting part of the cemetery and then expanding another part of the cemetery. So the expansion part, the foliage, the drip irrigation systems that are there with the native plants look good. What we've worked with your staff is look at some of the older sections of the cemetery that were converted from turf to the water-wise landscaping, the decomposed granite, and to make those, try to make those look as good as the other ones with the native plants and the vegetation. So we should know within the next month and be able to sit down with your staff with some plans, and we could look over the cemetery and how we plan to add foliage to make those look as much as possible like each other.
I appreciate that, and I know my time has expired. Let me just register our community's interests in rectifying this problem. Nobody wants to kneel on gravel when they're visiting a grave site at Fort Bliss. You go to Arlington, which is just absolutely beautiful and lush by comparison. I don't know that we need to have Arlington in El Paso, but we should have something that somehow commemorates the level of sacrifice, the level of respect owed to those who gave so much to our country and to their families who also sacrificed as well. So we want to work with you in any and all ways to improve that situation, but it is certainly a priority for our community. I appreciate your willingness to work with us on that. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back.